This is the People Before Politics show, broadcast every Sunday at 6 p.m. Hosts Damon K. Jones and AJ Woodson bring you the news that impacts our community. Join us for unfiltered, unapologetic coverage of the stories that matter most. Black Westchester Magazine presents The People Before Politics show, the news with the black point of view.
Peace and blessings, everybody. Peace and blessings. Welcome, 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 welcome. This is Black Westchester's People Before Politics show. And I am Damon K. Jones, publisher of Black Westchester Magazine. And I'm here and welcome. We have a big night tonight. We have a big night tonight. And please like and share, and we have a big night tonight. So, two things that's going on. We're gonna have defense attorney Jonathan Newton come on, and we're gonna talk about some cases, and we're also gonna have Sam Antar, the gentleman who broke all the information for the Tish James investigation, is going to come on and talk. We reached out to him because we saw that, a lot of the major news stations didn't have him on. Didn't want to talk to him. So we reached out because we wanted to know, is this stuff real or not? So he's coming on. So Jonathan Newton's going to come on soon and talk about two cases. We're going to talk about the Puffy case, and we're also going to talk about a case in the Bronx. You go to blackwestchester.com. There's a case in the Bronx with a young black man who did 23 years, and a judge vacated his sentence. And he was out for about 2 years, and now the Bronx District Attorney, Darcel Clark, is trying to put him back in jail. Did he do anything? No, he didn't do nothing. He started a family. He ended up working as a paralegal for a law firm. And they found a loophole in, I guess, how the judge vacated. So we're gonna have the conversation with, defense attorney Jonathan Newton in about 20 minutes. We are live on YouTube. We are live on X. We are live on Facebook. And please like and share every outlet that you're on. And please don't forget to go over to Black Westchester Magazine and check out our latest articles. We got some good, we definitely got some good articles that I believe people will be interested in. We definitely got some great articles. Let's So this is the website, y'all. If y'all don't know the website, this is the website for Black Westchester. Excuse me, I was at an event. So one of the things we want on the website that we're talking about is Black marriage, it's a forgotten key to economic Black marriage is a forgotten key to economic power. I think that's very interesting. Reports for the last, I think, since the 60s. One of the major reports was reports on the Black family. And it talked about then how Black marriage was in the decline, and Black marriage then was over 70%. And they were concerned that the numbers were dropping and how that would affect the economic stability of the Black community. Now, marriage rate is 35%. 80% of Black children are born out of wedlock. The numbers hasn't changed. It got worse. And it's, it's strictly economics, it's strictly math. If you have two people, regardless, you're probably making you're probably making more money. So the key goal here, I used to have that, I don't have it. The key goal here is we need to start talking about marriage in the Black community. Another article is check out at S&P 500 rebounds. I'm going to talk about this Monday on a show that we have at 8 p.m. called The Black Economy. What does this mean for Black America? Because we hear all over the news, they talking about the stock market goes up, stock markets go down. But what does it actually mean for Black America when they say this? Because only around 40% of Black families actually have stocks. So what's the big deal if only 40% of Black families have stocks? So we're gonna, actually, you could go on Black Westchester, read the article, but the whole is that we're going to talk about how does these issues affect Black America. Locally here in Westchester County, Social Security is closing the hearing office in White Plains. And County Exec King Jenkins and Congressman George Lattimore opposes it. You could read the article. Another in cutting services from the Trump administration. So you can check that out on Black Westchester. And this is Mental Health Month. I think it's very important that we recognize on Mental Health Month that Black minds matter. We really don't talk about mental health in the Black community. We don't make it we don't make it a conversation that needs to be had about mental health in the Black community, whether it's within our families, within our children, whether it's really within ourselves. Whether we like it or not, living as a Black American is very stressful. People might dismiss that, but being black in America is stressful. Because even if you try to point out racism and bigotry, you also have some people that say that it doesn't exist. And you have some Black people say racism and bigotry doesn't exist, which is insane. Recently, Trump inked a deal with Ukraine. And it draws praise and criticism and a lot of geopolitical questions on his deal with Ukraine. Now, Putin hasn't came to the table, but he inked a deal to try to stop the war between Ukraine and Russia. And it's a discussion that should be had because whether we like it or not, the Trump administration is changing the United States relationship through the world in global trade. It's going to work? I'm not sure. But we do know how things used to work was a detriment to Americans, but then they don't want Trump. I guess they don't want Trump to be the guy to change it. You know, so very interesting. And I'm just going through some stories. And this is a great story of Tony Holden, who was freed after 920 days in Kuwait. He was over there for 920 days. He was a business contractor, and he was out in Kuwait, and they took him hostage. Nobody talked about this black man. It's like his life didn't matter. And he just got home the other day. You can check that article out on blackwestchester.com. Here's another article. When we talk about Trump's first 100 days, his first 100 days as president, and without a doubt, everybody that's listening to the show, everybody that's paying attention to the show, Pharaoh has let black people go. I want to say that again if y'all ain't understand what I'm saying. Pharaoh has let black people go. Now, will Black America pivot and do what other ethnic groups has done? Be self-sufficient. Instead of us fighting for DEI, begging for a few black jobs in these white companies, are we going to start creating businesses and services and create a black economy within America with our $1.8 trillion in spending power? Because if his tax breaks go through and there's no taxes on your check, but there's a flat tax of 28%, according to reports that will go across. If we continue as black people to be consumer driven, we're going to be the losers in this. And we can't blame anybody but ourselves. Instead of taking the extra money from our paychecks not being taxed and investing and saving and starting businesses and services, If we continue down the road as consumers like we have been, we're really going to be the losers. We're going to be the losers across the board. And I'm talking about that in depth in another show called The Black Economy on the Black Westchester YouTube channel, where we have these discussions about the Black economy, about us changing our mindset and how we relate to the economy, and being active in local, state elections to make sure that our children are being well, I hope that we have pivoted, but I don't see black leaders talking about making sure all our children are from K to 12 are taught AI, making sure that these high schools in the black community also have vocational training to make sure that the kids that don't go to college come out with plumbers, electricians, HVAC, service skills, that they could have a job, a good paying job to take care of families and build communities. Where are the black leaders discussing these things? What I hear them talking about is they want to boycott Target and boycott Walmart and boycott this and boycott that for a few Negro positions on a board. DEI has not closed the wealth gap between black and white people in America. It doesn't work. And Al Sharpton or any other pastor or preacher that's out here talking about that can't show you the numbers in any state that it has worked. From Booker T. Washington to Frederick Douglass to Elijah Muhammad to Marcus Garvey, only thing that benefits black people is skills and services. And if we're not teaching black people skills so they create services, we are failing the black community. Yes, a lot of the talk is at the local level. And if you're watching this and if you don't show up to the school board meetings, if you don't show up to the school board elections, then you're part of the problem and you can't complain. Take a black city like Mount Vernon, when 80,000 people and 6,000 people come out to vote. So nobody can complain if the city look run down and ragged. Only 6,000 people come out to vote out of 80,000. And I bet you it's that way in many of black communities throughout the nation. Unless something happens and the situation is all on the news all the time. So we have to be more proactive in our communities. We really do. It doesn't make any sense. Trying to pull up the story of the young man trying to pull up the story of the young brother because I wanted to pull it up when Jonathan got on so we could talk about it. But I can't seem. Interesting. I can't seem to find it. But I have to find it when he comes on. But yes, what I was saying, brothers and sisters, when you was watching, and you could definitely tune in on Monday, the Black Economy, where I get deeper in this. But we're living in a time now that we have to take responsibility. We have to take deep responsibility in our actions and what we're doing in the Black community. We have to show out to vote. And we have to vote for outcomes, not for personality, not for personality politics and because they're on Facebook and Twitter and they got nice slogans and all this other nonsense. We have to vote for outcomes. What have you done for the Black community? What are your outcomes when you're elected? Or is your excuse the racist system and the white man and all this other stuff for you not doing anything in your political position? And if they give those excuses and they're not showing you outcomes, and as Black people, as educated people, we need to vote them out. As simple as that. I don't care what anybody says. You look at your community. And if your community is not reflecting how you want it to look, then you have to change your elected officials. It's really, the process is not hard, but I think what happens is our mindset. Because our mindset. So in Mount Vernon, New York, you have a whole bunch of people, but these are first two people that sent us. First two people that actually sent us press releases. You got Judge Peter Davis, who's running for election in Mount Vernon. And he also has the support of Blacks in Law Enforcement of America, a law enforcement organization. This is Mount Vernon needs strong, fair, and experienced leadership in the courts. Definitely read that. It's a very, very interesting statement from a law enforcement organization on how the political process works in Mount Vernon in dealing with judges. In dealing with judges. Also, City Council in Mount Vernon is supported by the same organization. Retired police lieutenant is running for City Council. And it goes, and and I'm going to take it back to elections on how we deal with elections until our guests come in. Until our guests come in. Hold on a second. Now he's looking for the link. Hold on 1 second. Trying to get this brother in here. So we have oh, he's in here.
Hang on 1 second.
Huh?
Let me get my background set.
All right. I brought him in too early, y'all. My brother's here. So, and thanks everybody that's watching. Let me bring AJ in. Peace and blessings, AJ. You got to turn something off. You got some feedback.
Oh, okay.
You got some feedback going on.
There we go. That's clear, right?
Yeah, you still got some noise. You got somebody got a TV on or something?
No, I turned everything off. Nothing's on.
Oh, okay. Jonathan will be on soon. And I was just going through the articles on the website.
Yeah, I saw. I was watching.
Okay.
What's up, everybody? I was out celebrating. Shout out to our sister, friend of the show, Brenda L. Crump. It's her birthday weekend. Took her out for lunch. I'm just coming back.
So the young man, and I'm upset right now. I can't find the article because I did the damn article. From the Bronx is related to Patty.
Yeah, she called me. I was just gonna tell you that.
Yeah. And she's trying to work on having them come on the show.
So she talked to, I don't know if it was like a cousin or something. They loved the idea. They talked to their lawyer and talk about doing a separate interview outside, whatever we're going to do tonight. And they come on for a separate interview.
Right.
She's trying to set it up, yeah.
Great.
Great. The fact that we even talking about it, she was appreciating it. And she's like, yeah, that's her cousin. Their grandmothers, they're the same grandmother or something. That's her blood cousin.
Really?
Yeah, that's what she wanted me to know today. She called me.
Yeah, Andre Brown. I'm trying to pull up an article. I'm trying to pull up the news clipping. Wow, what a small world, man.
Yeah, she called me earlier today. And she said she had already talked to you.
Yeah, she hit me. But what a small world.
No doubt. She another friend of the show.
Andre Brown is just days away from being.
And we're gonna probably start with his case. To have the discussion.
So while you're pulling that up, so you were talking about articles that that's on the site. I'm currently in the process of gathering information. I was talking to Judith Watson at the health center, and she's going to give me the numbers of how all the cuts to Medicaid have affected the work that they do and how they have to lay off a lot of people at the neighborhood health center. which serves, they got one in Greenberg, they got one in Mount Vernon. I think they serve Yonkers and other places, and they do a lot of work for a lot of people. And so we were talking, and she's gonna, we hear about national things, but this is like how it's affecting local. Like people really hear that national stuff really goes over people's head. When you talk about what is happening in your community, it resonates more. So we're gonna work with her. She's gonna give me the numbers and stuff. She has a lot of data to share to back up, the claim. But she's like, yo, they're laying off. They're gonna be laying off a lot of people because of the, how and that's how it affects them, And we'll probably even maybe bring her on and talk about it on the show or something too. But that's an article in the works that I'm working on. So we're just going to be, Damon tells you how this affects the Black community sometimes. And I wanted to bring it home. All politics is local. People really don't always care what's happening in D.C. and other states, but you kind of care when it's your neighborhood health center that serves you, that serves your community. So we're gonna have that working on that.
It's gonna be. Let me tell you, man. It's gonna be something, and we have to be prepared.
Also, shout out real quick. I met the young lady and her daughter who owns the community magazine Pelham Living, Black owned. Doing their thing, and I'll be building with her. But I just met her. Her name is Bonnie Dugan. I forget what her daughter's name, but her daughter does a lot of the content and handles social media. Because the first thing she asked me was the social media and start following us. So the younger people, they know how to navigate through all that. So shout out to Pelham Living.
Right. Okay. Great. Yo, give me the thumbs up. Let me know you ready.
Jonathan, I gave you a thumbs up. Welcome back, my brother. Good to see you again. Said we were going to do a follow-up.
I'm not appropriately dressed, fellas, but I appreciate you inviting me back.
Oh, man.
No, it's all right, man.
You're going to represent with the knowledge. You're going to represent. Most of the days I'm in a T-shirt. So, but welcome back. When we finished that last conversation and we said open door, and we're glad that we want you to come back. You didn't know it would be this quick, did you?
Nah, I didn't.
Yeah, so Damon.
Yeah, man, we have people that's watching. This is Jonathan Newton, and I'm glad this brother comes on, and hopefully he'll come on more. We could legally talk about what the hell is going on out here with Black folks. and there's some issues. And later on at 7:00, we're going to have Sam Antar. Jonathan, I sent you what he sent me.
I saw.
We're going to wait. No, we're going to.
Hey, listen, man. Between Diddy and her, they got their work cut out.
Shout out to Michael Green.
Hey, what's happening? I stayed away from the Diddy. I really just tried to just not even discuss the whole Diddy thing.
I didn't write any articles. I didn't write any articles other than the fact that the day he got indicted or arrested or whatever, and what the charges were, like just regular news. But I've stayed away from. I personally know a lot of people who have worked with him, and in Mount Vernon. You know what I'm saying? We know a lot of people who have connections, and I took, I talked to a few people when I was writing my book about 914 hip hop, and several of them, and they're close to Diddy. They was like they get regular requests for interviews, and they're not doing interviews. So I took those are the ones who know him better. I took the same approach. I'm not gonna really speak much on it, but the case is coming, and it's in the courts now.
It's gonna start this week, I think. I thought.
Right. So it's in the courts now, and talking about it, covering the case is different than a lot of the innuendo, whether, all that other stuff that everybody else is talking about.
Nobody knows what's true until it's proven in court. What I will say is when I heard a preview of the defense, I shook my head. And, if that is in fact going to be the defense, because,
right, right. But, I'm going to say this.
Yeah, I hope that's not.
Look, I'm going to say this. Well, it probably is, because at the end of the day, unfortunately, at the end of the day, I've done security for a lot of entertainment people, and I traveled the country and I dealt with a lot of people. And some of these stories that you hear, there are people that co-signs on these stories. Yeah. Unfortunately. Right? So my whole thing is, if you put that type of energy out there, that energy will come back.
Eventually.
It will come back, and maybe this, and I'm not wishing bad on anybody, bro.
Me either.
He has to have his day in court.
Absolutely.
He has to have his day in court. But at the end of the day, I hope he learned something from this ordeal, because, as we say in the jail, when you hear something, 50% of it is true and 50% of it might be a lie.
Right.
And there's also another saying, where there's smoke, there's usually fire too. So I
go against all that. Damn it, the state got to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt for me to believe any of it. He has a presumption of innocence until he's proven guilty. Right now, he's sitting up in the jail, an innocent man, until the state does. I don't want to curse on the show, until they do their job.
And this is the show you can curse. There's no FCC right now. There's no
bro. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
You are absolutely right. But there's a universe. There's a universe, brother, that's whipping his ass.
Yeah, the universe is already having court right now.
The court of public appeal, the
court of public opinion, and I mean, let's face it, the videos that came out on CNN with him dragging the girl down the hallway and stuff, and then afterwards, I don't know who advised him right afterwards, but then he did an Instagram,
apology.
Apology. Man, just shut up. Shut the fuck up. Don't say nothing right now. And when the people come for you, call me and don't say shit. You know what I'm saying? But you all on the Instagram, you are influencing jurors as we speak. Okay, so I'm like, man. And then if I don't wish no bad on the brother, but I'm certain them people gave him an offer, and at this point, he makes his own decisions. I always tell my clients, I make recommendations and you make determinations. Okay. I will tell you what the evidence is that the state intends to prove these allegations, and here are the elements of the crime that you are charged with, and here are the jury instructions that the judge will read to the jury, and here's the evidence. Now you can look at this and you can say, well, this is how we attack this, and I will say, and this is how we can attack this, and this is how I can muddy the waters. This is how we can poke holes in the state's case. And it's your gamble to make, not my gamble to take, and I want them to feel comfortable in the decision. But oftentimes I do see a lot of clients that are delusional after they look at the evidence. And in his situation, right, I don't know what's going to be offered. And so I'm holding out hope for him. I can't say he's delusional because I haven't seen the evidence. I've heard, like you said, AJ, a lot of rumor and innuendo. If even 20% of that shit is the truth, he's got an uphill battle in a courtroom in front of a jury. Don't know what the jury makeup will be like up there, but the reality is that at the end of the day, a defense attorney is looking for at least one person out of those 12 that we can reach and say the state did not prove this beyond a reasonable doubt, so my client can have an opportunity to walk out the courtroom with me. And it's just over the course of the last year or so with him being pretrial, we've heard so much stuff. I can't wait to just like, hey, let's get this under go and see what happens here.
There's been 101 documentaries too.
Where do we?
Every network has a documentary. Diddy did it, or the Diddy story, or the 4-part series of the Diddy thing. And I'm like, every time I turn on Roku, they're like, oh, there's another series, there's another one, and there's another. And every network had a streaming series, and so you never know. It's when I will say this though. So there's two things, like being a music journalist since like 91. There's two things. One, there are powerful people who people are just coming for. You know what I'm saying? People are coming for a paycheck. I'm not saying that's the situation here, but I'm saying there are powerful people and people are just coming to them for a paycheck. I will say, like what Damon was saying, but like from the other side of things, I work with a lot of publicists, and a publicist's job, they hate when I say it, is media manipulation, to get the narrative that they want out about their client. No matter what happened, that is their job, to get their narrative out. And I've seen that and been parts of that where I know what happens and I know what y'all read. Like, you know what I'm saying? So
you actually know the true Hollywood story behind the scenes.
Right, I was there.
You get to see the media narrative of how they ever spun it and the end product.
Right. So I say that to say, regardless of what you see on TV, regardless of what you see publicists report, regardless of what you see a lot of reputable news media report, there's always another aspect of it. This is somebody's narrative of it. Depending on, you have friendly media, so they're going to run with your narrative, and then you have unfriendly media that runs with the propaganda, and their whole thing is to destroy you. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, we don't know. And like you said, and until a jury convicts him and finds him guilty, and until evidence is presented in court, we really do not know. Other than, like you said, that video is what, that he can't deny doing the video. But other than that.
No, that video was horrible, man.
And one of the people that's in this camp, one of the people in this camp was saying, oh, well, you don't know what happened before that. Yo, there's nothing that could have happened before that to excuse what I saw in the video. I'm just saying, that's a man.
Nobody cares. At the end of the day, the defense in this case has to challenge the evidence that's going to be presented in court by poking holes in it, scrutinize the evidence, and every witness that's going to come look for inconsistencies in their statement so that you can challenge the reliability. That's the first thing that you want to focus on. The argument is one of the facts in this is that this somehow relates to interstate commerce, and none of these victims or these actions were really related to interstate commerce, which is a requirement for many of the charges that he faces. Okay, they're going to have to prove that somehow or another these folks were brought someplace across state lines and that sort, or it affected interstate commerce.
I have a question about that when you finish.
Yeah, there's racketeering charges, and they're basically saying that this was part of a organization that was doing this. They have to prove that an organization was utilized, and if there's no organization that was doing this, it can't be said that it is a RICO or racketeering scenario. And so that may be one on motion for judgment of acquittal by the judge, basically saying that there's not enough evidence to send that to a jury. And make no mistake about it, the state and the government often overcharges to force people to plea, and then when the reality is, when the trial starts, once the trial starts, they're not able to meet their evidentiary burden, and therefore a judge says, "I'm not sending that back to a jury." On the sexual allegations, the sexual related stuff, they're essentially going to argue consent. That these people were all of consent. I think that That's part of it.
I want to stop real quick. I want to ask you about that because I've seen this debated with lawyers and talking heads. So if you have, I'm giving you a scenario. If you have strippers, just say from Atlanta, and you're flying them up to your party in New Jersey to, entertain your crowd and whatever, is that sex trafficking? Like they're trying to say,
boy, Damon, I hope not.
Well, that's what they say.
A lot of people going to go to jail, right?
Because that's what they're saying. A lot of people, that's what they do. They get these strippers and stuff, and they fly them, and they're saying that's part of the case that they're trying to make. And I wanted you to speak from a lawyer's perspective, like, because I'm saying it's talking heads and lawyers.
It has to be for a specific purpose, and what they're talking about is essentially a specific intent crime. What is the intent behind flying those people up there? Was it to sex traffic or was it to entertain at a party? If it's entertaining at a party, that's done all the time. And jurors are going to have a real difficult time believing or being persuaded that that strippers flying from Atlanta or wherever they're coming from are flying to be sex trafficked. They participate in the sex industry in one way or another. But essentially they're entertainers, and if what they've done at the house later turned into something else, then that wasn't the intent that he flew them up there, and that's what I would argue to a jury. My client flew them up there to entertain us. They were strippers. They were going to be adult entertainers at an adult party, period. And what took place between other people is none of my concern, none of my business. That was not my intent for my client's intent. And that's so when you have the talking heads saying that that's really going to be a rock solid, that's not really a rock solid in my opinion.
Right.
And that's why I asked, because I heard that these are adults. They do, like you said, they're adult entertainers. They do this and they go different places and they go different. The ones who make money, they go to Vegas, they go to New York, they go to California, they go where the money is. They go to those. And if you fly and how many rappers have flown them for their music videos? And I mean, I seen that side of things. So you know what I mean? Like,
right.
Well, see, but that's the Puffy arrest has pulled the cover off a lot of what these entertainers have been doing for years. Because I know.
Yeah.
And I've talked to people, and a lot of them told me there's two parties. There's the Puffy party that's publicized.
Right.
Then there's the Puffy party. Right?
That's not publicized.
Right. And when you go there, you know what you're going there for.
Really, what inquiring minds want to know is which one of the parties was Bishop Jakes at? That's what everybody really wants to know.
Exactly. And let me tell you. Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, you got a fan here, man. He wants to donate for you, brother.
To run for office, your future run for office. Yeah, man.
I appreciate that. I really do.
But I mean, Bishop Jakes stepped down. I was like, Lord, he stepped down when the trial started.
Right when the trial started. That's a heck of a coincidence. So I looked at the indictment. I looked at the indictment and the charges, and when they lay out, I'm going to read something to you. From at least about 2008 through on or about the date of the filing of this indictment, Sean Combs, aka Puff Daddy, aka P Diddy, aka Diddy, aka PD, aka Love, the defendant, and other known and unknown were members of associates of a criminal enterprise, the Combs Enterprise. Let me say something. I would have attacked. I mean, I don't know if they did, but just the broadness of that, like, I want some specificity about who is this organization and who are these known and unknown members, so that I know what I'm defending against. Because really, this doesn't sound like a real organization if it's that amorphous, right? If it's that ambiguous as about who are this organization, why should we trust that the government says others known and unknown were members and associates of a criminal organization, the Combs Enterprise? Members and associates of the Combs Enterprise engaged in and attempted to engage in, among other activities, sex trafficking, forced labor, interstate transportation for the purposes of prostitution, coercion, and enticement to engage in prostitution, narcotics offenses, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and obstruction of justice. So right off the bat, I'm going to build me a list of those things, and I'm going to then say, what evidence do they have to support this notion that he was doing sex trafficking, which means a specific thing, forced labor, which means a specific thing, interstate transportation for the purposes of prostitution, which means it's coercion and enticement to engage in prostitution, narcotics offenses, kidnapping. Listen, if it's this broad, as we say, there are some parties right now probably going on in LA and in Miami and probably in New York that folks can be subject to an indictment if we're going to create this as the standard moving forward, right? Because we know there's some sex going on and some people getting paid for that sex because they're not really in love. We know that they might have been strippers, Instagram models, or whatever. We know that there's some narcotics being used, okay? We know now, so where the rubber meets the road is, how are they going to prove those things? How are they going to prove that somebody?
Let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question, John.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of that stuff was accused in the Cassie case that they set up.
Right.
A lot of in her complaint, she talked about a lot of that stuff.
Right.
And how she sued was so great because she sued as an employee of Puffy.
Right. Right.
So maybe that case is the bedrock of the employees, people that work for Puffy.
Damon, that's what I think is gonna. I think when we get the trial on this, we're going to see disgruntled employees testifying about some of the activities that were taking place, some of the things that they were involved in as far as scheduling.
The security guard, that's all over the internet.
Yeah,
he got to be brought in because he's just talking.
He's been talking for decades. He's been just talking about everything.
What Jaguar, right? She's been talking for decades about this stuff.
Yeah.
But the new dude that came through, the producer,
then you just had what's my man, the actor,
who,
from the first Iron Man movie that played Rhodey. What's my man, the light skinned brother,
Terrence Howard.
Terrence Howard was just. Terrence
He
blew it out the water. I'm like, yo, this guy's trying. He's like, why does he keep calling me?
And he said his boy told him. He said, yeah, he said this to me. And I'm like, yo, why is he? He said, yo, he's trying to fuck you. He's like,
fuck you.
He was like, from that point, like I've been keeping, like, yeah. He told that story, like, yo, that's all over the internet now.
About it on the PBD podcast, and he basically was like, yo, dudes that go to these Puffy parties give up their manhood.
Wow.
So when you have entertainment, when you have entertainers now co-signing on some, it's out. Now we're co-signing on it. Cat Williams blew it out. Cat Williams blew it out the water. He started.
I was going to say, Cat was the first person to really talk about it. And everybody said, oh, he's just disgruntled because his career, blah, 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 blah. Listen, I'm like, wait till Cat gets sued. If Cat gets sued, we know it's some bullshit. But if Cat didn't get sued, he didn't get sued, right?
From nobody.
But from nobody.
Everybody was upset. Everybody was upset. Everybody called him a liar.
No lies detected in what Cat was saying, because if what Cat was saying was false, somebody would have sued him for defamation. Somebody would have sued him for all kinds of stuff. And then they didn't sue him though, because they didn't want to be opened up on that discovery. Like, hey, we're gonna bring you in and depose you on what really happened at the Puff party, and so that's how that went.
Yeah, I mean that's insane.
Yeah, nobody sued him.
No, ain't nobody sued him. I mean, they didn't even sue. He even sued Jaguar, right?
Yeah,
he's been running her mouth
because he knows that if he look. I forgot who it was. One of these ministers sued somebody recently, and I'm looking for when they go to battle. Like, the truth comes out in those depositions, them recorded depositions, And in this situation, Jaguar Wright, over the last 10 years, I think almost going back 20 years, she's never been challenged on any of that stuff.
Yeah, they just try to discredit her and say she's lunatic and she's all this and all that. You know, not only did Cat Williams not get sued, but this is what it was for me, and especially from a media perspective. Cat didn't get sued, neither did the host Shannon Sharp and the network. Because when you sue the person, you sue the network, you sue the host, you sue. Ain't none of them. Ain't Shannon stop. Nobody stop advertising with him. Ain't nobody like. So you got to kind of wonder. You got to kind of wonder.
So
when
let's
stuff like this.
jump in. Listen, let's jump in real quick. I want to jump into this other story real quick.
The local one, right?
Because
we didn't get
Sam
to that.
Sam just logged in, and I definitely want to get in. I definitely want to get into everything. So I want to play this real quick, y'all, while Sam's setting up, Sam Antar, because I want to get into the Tits James stuff. Hold on one second. Let me play it.
Forced to return to prison. We were in a similar position the last time I saw you.
11th hour.
To serve the remainder of a 40-year sentence for a crime he said he didn't commit.
About 17 years in prison.
No, I don't. I think that leaving them out here on the first day is going to kill me.
Andre has already served 23 years for 2 counts of attempted murder in 1999. He married his wife Tamika while in prison and has a son and stepdaughter.
I'm not doing good. I don't sleep much. I try to save as much time as I can watching my wife sleep or going into my son's room, going into my daughter's room.
2 years ago, his conviction was vacated for ineffective assistance of counsel. Andre walked out of prison and began to rebuild his life. But that decision was recently overturned, and he was ordered back to prison. About 6 weeks ago, I sat with Andre and his family, a day before he was supposed to turn himself in. But hours later, they got the call. A temporary lifeline, the Bronx DA granting a temporary 30-day adjournment while New York Governor Kathy Hochul considered his application for clemency.
What we keep trying to tell them. This is a different case because you already know how he's going to do in society.
Now Andre's attorney, Oscar Michelin, says the clemency board is telling him they are not prepared to grant Andre clemency at this time, but the application is still under consideration.
The anxieties are high, the stress levels are very high. It's tumultuous in my home. There's no peace right now.
We asked the governor's office, and they said they do not comment on pending clemency applications. That means Andre must surrender this Friday, unless the Bronx DA agrees to another postponement. His attorney plans to file a motion to resentence Andre, arguing that he had ineffective counsel at sentencing.
Also doesn't go to Andre's innocence or guilt. This was a sentence that he wouldn't have gotten had he had a good lawyer at the time of sentence.
We reached out to the Bronx DA and asked them about delaying Andre's return to prison while they consider resentencing. The office responded, saying, quote, any comments will be made in court on the record. Michelin says the governor's clemency panel told him there was a, quote, strenuous objection from the victim's family. We reached out to the mother of one of the victims who didn't want to go on camera, but told us she still believes Andre is guilty and should go back to jail.
Victims' voices deserve to be heard, absolutely. But the point of a legal system is for that voice to be one of several factors that are considered in a decision to allow someone to return to society.
Rebecca Brown is an expert in the field of criminal justice reform and says someone convicted of attempted murder wouldn't get Andre's sentence now.
A 40-year sentence for a crime of this nature would be extremely uncommon today. And that's part of why it is just absolutely defies logic that we would be considering sending Andre back to prison. When we consider things like clemency or resentencing, we're supposed to think about the whole person and who the person is today.
Which is what we tried to do. Behind bars, Andre earned his paralegal certification. And since his release, he worked for a judge, is mentoring at-risk youth, and built a safe space for young men. What type of guy is Andre?
Andre is very charismatic and a smiling guy. If you didn't know what he went through, you wouldn't be able to tell. In a very short amount of time, he was able to gather like the worst of the worst in New Rochelle and create a safe haven for us.
Have you changed since you started working with Andre?
100%.
Andre helped me a lot because I was actually getting kicked out of the program that I was in. He took his time out his day to like call me. He got me in the the GED program. He helped me get a job, actually. He makes me want to change my life.
Andre even volunteered alongside a former Manhattan assistant DA, Charles King.
He's making a real difference in their lives. And sending him back to prison sends the completely wrong message to these gentlemen and gentlemen like him. He's shown what he will do and what he has done once he's out. So tell me what purpose is to be served by sending him back.
And what about Andre's daughter and son, AJ, who's just 14 years old? Will he become another statistic? What are you most worried about?
Statistic, the great looming anvil that goes over every Black child's neck.
But even in these final days, Andre and his wife, Tamika, are holding out hope.
We're not going to leave him there to do this time by himself.
Hope that someone, somewhere, will decide that what Andre Brown has done with his freedom matters more than what he was accused of. Yasmin Dasugian, NBC News.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app. Or
hold on a second. I'm trying to stop this thing here.
Yeah, so Jonathan, you watched that, and I want to hear your feedback. I want, from a legal perspective, from your perspective as an attorney.
I mean, he got a harsh sentence to begin with, and then he gets out. He got it vacated, and essentially the state should consent to resentencing of him, give him credit for time served, and put him on a period of probation that subjects him to some backup time. But I don't see the very first foul in that was the fact that he was over sentenced, and no one for attempted murder receives 40 years. And so the criminal justice reform that's taken place over the last 10 years has addressed some of those harsh, extraordinarily racially desperate sentences that were issued. And so he should really be giving an opportunity to continue doing the good work that he's doing. He's obviously rehabilitated, and there's nothing else that the state can really benefit from having him incarcerated. I think that's a horrible case. And to see that DA dragging this out without saying, let's work this out. We have been the voice of the victim. The victim has gotten their pound of flesh and whatever they're entitled to get, and let's move forward and let this man be productive in our society. It's really sick.
And he's done 23 years.
That's it wasn't like he did 5 years or 3 years or some small amount of time. He's done I've been successful in getting people who have killed somebody less than 20 years, and so it's hard to really understand the mindset of the state's attorney, the district attorney in that particular case. I'm just going to call bullshit on that. She's on some bullshit.
This is also in the 90s when we had the crime bill and the mass incarceration of Black people and the overcharging that for a lot of that with crack versus cocaine. This is 93. This is in that time.
So we've come a long way since then, and it's obvious that man has taken the punishment and used that time period to rehabilitate himself and to make himself a better person. To hear those other young people talk about the impact that he's had upon their lives is exactly what we are desiring from our system to do as far as rehabilitation. So for her to drag this out, I don't understand how that's going to work out for her politically.
Speaking about people who rehabilitated themselves, welcome to the show.
I was thinking the same thing. I said we're gonna segue right into Sam.
I'm a big fan.
Guys, I did not rehabilitate myself. It was the beatings the FBI gave me as a criminal that made me into a better person.
I'm big fans of you, the whole Crazy Eddie thing, Jerry with the commercials. I'm big.
Yeah, man. Welcome. Well, we got to officially welcome Sam Antar to the Black Westchester show. Welcome. It's great.
For those that don't know, for those who don't know, because everyone doesn't know, you are the cousin or nephew of Eddie from Crazy?
I was the cousin of Crazy Eddie. I was the chief financial officer of the company. I was one of the main masterminds of the fraud, especially on the financial side. I invented the Panama Pump, which was the money laundering scheme that was later the plot of the movie The Accountant. You know,
wow.
Everything they accuse me of with Crazy Eddie, I'm guilty as charged.
Man, I like
and
I
now
like
what are
a
you
guy like that, man.
and now what are you doing? Tell people what you're doing these days.
Well, today I do fraud investigations. Over the years after Crazy Eddie's, because I had a college degree, I had an education to draw upon. Even though I lost my CPA license, they can take away the paper, but they can't take away what's in your head.
That's exactly
Right.
And the federal agents that were my sworn enemies back in the day, actually, you know, it was strictly business. In other words, I never hated my enemies. I did business. And because of that, after the Crazy Eddie case, they started referring me for teaching and speaking appearances.
Wow.
And eventually it morphosized into working as a forensic accounting by some of the very law firms that sued me on behalf of the shareholders I defrauded. And later on, I did whistleblower work, similar to the Tish James case, where I submitted whistleblower complaints to the SEC and cashed in very, very good on those things. And then I worked for law firms that represented whistleblowers. And unfortunately, I had a bad situation where two of my sons passed away, one in 2013, one in 2021. Went into a depression, got, you know, as would be normal under the circumstances.
Right. Absolutely.
There was a period of time that I really wasn't that mentally productive. But over time, I started getting productive again. And pretty much my blogging is, the only money I make is from Google Ads, which is about $2 a day, which helps fund my investigations. And that's it. It's pretty much a hobby at this point. I'm quasi-retired. Some days I think I'm retired. Some days I'm not. Yeah.
Before you go, Damon, I want to say, my grandfather always used to say, whatever you do, be good at it. Because if you're good, even when you're doing bad things, the government will find a job for you. And it reminds me of that the other guy from the show who DiCaprio played him, Catch Me If You Can, with the checks, he's writing all the checks. And now he has been used to all the systems to catch all of those things that all the banking people use now. They use him because he was so good at what he was doing.
Yeah, Frank Abagnale actually reviewed Retail Gangster by Gary Weiss, which is a book on the Crazy Eddie fraud. Very, very detailed in its citations, 28 pages of endnotes for a 280-page book. So it gives you an idea of how he was detailed. And Abagnale gave it a very, very glowing review. I've never met Abagnale, but of course everybody's heard about Frank Abagnale. He's a legend.
Right.
Tell me, Damon.
So Sam, what made you look into Tish? Like that has been the conversation of people online. Like, how did it? You're looking at Tish James, right? You're looking at somebody that's on TV. You know what came? Did a letter come across? Like, how did it happen that you just stumbled on all this stuff, man?
I'll explain. Over the months, going back, I don't know how long, I was blogging about New York City and deception. First, I was blogging about how they were lying about the crime figures, how they were creating a positive spin on it. Then I started looking, because remember, I'm an army of one. I'm not a big media organization with 100 people that I can pay attention to everything. Got limited resources and limited time. So then I started looking about how New York City was spending money. I started examining the New York City checkbook website, saw that there were $4 billion a year in transactions where they don't even identify the payee or the purpose. Now, there could be legitimate parts of that too, why you don't want to identify the payee or the purpose, you know, battered children, etc. But I saw it being abused for regular travel expenses and supplies and stuff like that. Then I started looking at how the campaigns were spending money. You know, and I'd written about Brad Lander, who's the controller, Humani Williams, who is the public advocate, and I'd written about several state senators. And along the way, I started writing about Adrienne Adams, who's the head of the city council, speaker of the city council. And I noticed that she was very, very extravagant in her spending. Let's put it that way. And that led me along the way, keep going and going and going. It led me to Tish James. And I said, okay, Let me look at our campaign finance. Wow, shit. There's a lot of crap going on here. There's a lot of expenditures. Okay. Then I put it aside and I started looking at the New York State financial disclosures, which is separate apart. How much money did they make? What assets they have, etc. And I went down the line. If you go to the website, Kathy Hochul is first. A lot of this stuff was already written about. Leave it alone. Delgado was second. I couldn't find anything. I frisked him, Michael. He's clean. I frisked him. He's clean. Third person I went was to Letitia James. And initially, the first thing I noticed is that she, on her financial disclosures, she had a Virginia property on Peroni Avenue in Norfolk that she purchased in 2020. When I'm going through the financial disclosures, I noticed in 2023, she took 2 mortgages on the property, totaling between $250,000 to $400,000, when she only valued the property at $100,000 to $150,000. Now, that would be a red flag for everybody. I think you're a former cop, Damon?
Yeah. Look, correction.
That would be a red flag for everybody. Right.
Yeah, John.
Thank God I didn't get beatings thank God I didn't get beatings from you to make me a better person. But anyway, the point being is that I looked, wow, this is crazy. 250 to 400. She's valuing it 100 to 150. So I looked at Zillow and this and that. And at most they were valuing it at $200,000. And I don't want to quote Zillow because it's a bot and all of that stuff. Right. I stuck to the facts. So automatically I said, let me order a title report on that. I want to see what the hell is going on that property. So I spent the $200, ordered a title report, right? And all of a sudden it comes back and it says she took out a mortgage on the home when she purchased it for $108,000 that was never disclosed. It should have been disclosed. And the 2 mortgages that led me to the title report aren't in the property records. So I said, what the hell is going on here? You have 1 mortgage that you didn't disclose to New York State. You have 2 mortgages that you did disclose to New York State that weren't in the property records. And and that led me along the path to the other Virginia property in Sterling Street, and led me along the path as far as the Brooklyn property is concerned. And after that, I started to go back to her campaign spending. I says, well, let me just see if there's any state spending, spending from her own office that taxpayers pay for that coincide with the campaign spending. I said, wow, sheesh. There's 6 private jet transactions totaling $40,000 in change to a jet charter company called Venture Jets. No other government agency since 2014 ever did business with them, except for Tish James. She did, and a few of those private jet expenditures overlapped her campaign outings. And after the state stopped paying for those expenses, her campaign started to pay Venture Jets for her private travel. So that's pretty much how I got to Tish James.
Wow.
Let me ask you.
It was an evolution. Remember, I'm one person. I can't, do 20 things simultaneously.
Right.
That's how real criminal investigators do it. It's one step at a time, and one fact builds on another, builds up to another fact, builds up to another fact.
It's like this lady on Newsmax, Lydia, I forgot her last name, said to me, it's just peeling the onion. So this is a process. I didn't do the whole investigative work at once. I'm doing it as I'm going along and learning new things, step by step by step. Kind of like when the feds caught me.
and it's also the same thing as journalism. Like a good journalist, that's how you don't never trip over the whole story. Something piqued your interest and you look further and you dug further and you dug further and you build on top of that. But I want to stop right there real quick because there were some things said, but when you were coming on, and I seen some things written about you online. So some people are writing you off that you are paid to come after her and that you're a Trump MAGA supporter and you're working for Trump, and that's the reason why you're doing any of this. So I wanted to give you a chance to explain that.
I'm a registered Democrat, first of all. I've supported Democratic and Republican candidates, as my right is an American. Right. I have no ties to the Trump administration. I am not in contact with the Trump administration, although I am in contact with law enforcement, as would be expected under the circumstances. I am not. Right. And it's totally ridiculous. But let's put that aside. Let's say everything everybody is saying about me is true for the sake of argument. My work speaks for itself. It's very documented. I post links to all of the source documents. It doesn't matter if I burned down the building yesterday. What matters is if I am correct or incorrect.
Right.
And I wanted you to get a chance to address that also. So you didn't have a personal axe to grind with Tish James and you're just coming after her. I have a personal
axe. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I have a personal axe to grind with any politician that I see is corrupt. Now, in New York, unfortunately, it's a one-party state. There's no Republican controller. There's no Republican governor. There's no Republican mayor. There's no Republican city councilor. What am I going to do? Should I, with my limited resources, should I start writing about some red state somewhere far away? Of course not. So it just led me to that trail, and I've it's kind of like people think I'm a media organization. I'm one person acting alone.
and I wanted you to get that out because we've been doing Black Westchester for going on 11 years now. I'm the main writer, the main researcher, our bigger stories have been, Damon is involved in other ways, but have been me, just me doing the research, digging. Damon gives me some tips. Somebody else gives me some tips. I further, and then once you get this, you're like, okay, you build on that, and then it leads to another question, and so I get all of that because
we're credited for getting an indictment on Mayor Richard Thomas, the mayor of Mount Vernon, which Tish James, she messed the whole case up. Like,
here's my impression. Here's my impression. This is just a personal observation. When I blog about things, I root it in facts. If I don't have facts, I ask questions. Okay?
Absolutely.
Exactly.
But in this case, I'll just give you a personal observation, which could be incorrect. I don't know. Is that I don't think she is as bright as people really think she is, given what I've documented. I think she's more of a political figure than a legal figure, notwithstanding the fact that she has a law degree. I just don't see her as an effective litigator. Now you can say, well, she went after Trump and this and that, and she won whatever. But those cases are under appeal, and who knows what's going to happen.
Probably get overturned. Listen, Sam, that's one thing I've noticed this since I've been in the practice of law. There are people who have a law degree who can't litigate and then become politicians. Or seriously,
we have that with accountants also, but okay.
And they do other things because being a litigator is really tough. You really do have to think about what you're going to do before you do it.
Oh, it's a grueling thing, and somebody's life is on the line when you're litigating. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
It doesn't surprise me that she's loose like that, because there are a lot of, like, I call them pretenders among us. They simply have got through law school. They may have 5 or 6 times later passed the bar. Okay, and then they're out there. They're a licensed attorney, and they don't have much to do. They can't make a living at this, because when you hang a shingle, you can't really fake it, because, as you say, if you go into court and you don't really have it, somebody's going to end up going to prison, and you're not going to get 5 stars on Google, and that's how you build your business as a litigator. So it doesn't surprise me at all, because there are a lot of pretenders in this. I
want to ask Sam a question real quick, and Jonathan touched upon it. There was two things. One, I think in the paperwork that she signed for the property in Virginia, she says that was her primary residence.
No, she intended to make it a primary residence.
Okay. And the witness.
A lot of people get it wrong on social media, and I don't want to enable that description.
Right. I appreciate that. And the person who witnessed it was her deputy in the AG's office, somebody Levy or somebody. Is that
Jennifer Levy and another person, a staffer in their office?
So
really?
Two people?
From her
2 people
office?
In fact, in fact, you stopped me from finishing my blog about it, but I'll share it with you now.
That brings up an interesting point, though.
So now you're scooping me on my own blog. Go ahead.
If she intends to make that her residence, won't that essentially disqualify her from being?
Yes.
No, if she actually, here's the key legal distinction. Okay, first of all, let's talk about Jennifer Levy and the other person whose name I just don't have on the top of my head. Okay, they were called to witness the document. That doesn't mean that they actually saw the document or read the document, but they will invariably be questioned by the feds,
right?
As the feds should question everybody. But it is unfortunate that she used. If these people have been working during the day and she used them during the day, that's an illegal use of state resources.
Yeah.
Right. Now, on the other thing, you asked the question about the residence. Okay.
Right.
If she had actually moved there, then she would have been disqualified for it. She never moved there.
Okay.
Let me give you go ahead. I'm sorry.
So just stating that I intend qualifies me for the special the discounts on the mortgage.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I'll give you the timeline.
Okay.
According to a lawyer, on August 3rd, she sends out an email stating that she doesn't intend to make it a private residence. It could be August 4th. Yeah, exactly. I'm not exactly. Around August 17th, she signs the power of attorney that's notarized by 2 members of her office, saying that she intends to make that property her primary residence. Now, the lawyer claims it was a subsequent document before closing where she reaffirmed that it was going to be a primary residence. But let's put all of that aside. Whatever her lawyer says does not matter, because the loan itself was based upon her declaration that it was going to be the primary residence, and that both her and her co-buyer, Shamice Thompson, her niece, were going to occupy it based upon that.
Right.
So it doesn't matter what she told the bank or didn't tell the bank or whatever. The reality is that's the way the loan was underwritten. It was never corrected. She never sought to say, something, I should be paying higher interest.
Let me amend this.
What?
Let me amend this. Like, she never said, I made a mistake, let me amend this before I get this benefit for this.
That's correct. I'm glad I'm on the air with you, because usually you get these 5-minute things where you go and it's very hard to elaborate and separate truth from fiction. I mean, I know people mean well, we all mean well, but nobody bats 1,000. And I don't want to propagate incorrect information at her, because that will just ruin the integrity of what I'm doing.
Right.
So she got the loan. They bought the house. And she got the break. She got that tax break.
No, it's not a tax break. What you're talking about is the homestead exemption. I'll clarify to you.
Right.
The homestead exemption protects people in Virginia that are primary residents from possible credits in the future. It's kind of like Florida in a way. In other words, I own a house. Okay, the first $50,000, I'm not quoting exact numbers, but the first $50,000 in equity in that house, creditors can't attach.
Okay.
So what they have to do is they file a homestead deed, which is recorded in the county clerk's office. And when I did the title search on that property, there was nothing to be found. So I actually didn't even trust the title company. I even went further and called up the county clerk's office.
So they never filed for a homestead exemption down there in Virginia?
They never filed. Her or her niece that purchased the property with it never filed for the homestead exemption.
So as a defense attorney, that's going to be moved over to the good fact. So, that's a good fact for them.
So I want to move on to the one of the other things I was reading about was, so explain the Brooklyn property. It's 5 apartments, but she listed it as 4, and you get a certain whatever benefit for 4, and once it's 5, it's commercial. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yes, I'll explain to you. In fact, I went over there about 2 weeks ago with another person, Joe Gilbert, who's been also done some invaluable stuff on the thing. So I don't want you to think I'm taking total credit for myself, which is not true. Joe Gilbert did a lot of work, and we built upon each other's work, similar to the way you build upon what you learn in an investigation. Same thing. So what happens is she has a residence in Brooklyn that she purchased around 2001. She, in her own name, her own person, individually. And the first mortgage she takes out listed as a 1 to 2 family house. And over the years, there were 9 other mortgages and refinancings, etc. She has every single mortgage listed at 4 families, 1 or 2 families, or 1 family. Now, 4 families or less. Now, when you buy a property, there's something called the title search, the appraisal. There's various things that go on when you buy a property. My memory is fogged a little bit because I live in Manhattan. I live in an apartment back in the day. But anyway, so what they're supposed to do is they're supposed to look at the permitted occupancy of the property. Now, there was a certificate of occupancy that was, they inspected the premises and they filed it 2 weeks before, 3 weeks before she purchased the property. Probably when she was, in contract on the property. In other words, nobody goes and buys the property. Yeah, it's yours, off the shelf, whatever. The certificate of occupancy clearly states that it's 5 units, and any loan officer, any professional will tell you that the certificate of occupancy is the paramount document. You can't just turn a 5-unit building into 4 units by saying you're occupying 2 units. That's not the way it works. There has to be what's called a legal conversion. I think it's a Section 1A or something like that, conversion.
It's almost like a partition.
What?
It's almost like a partitioning of the property.
Right, exactly. There are building codes that go into it to prevent people from creating fire hazards, etc. Right. Now, complaints were registered with the Department of Buildings. I don't know who did the complaints, but they were registered. And the Department of Buildings wrote it off as a minor error. What do you mean minor error? She's saying it's 4 units, it's 5 units. Now, was there political favoritism involved? I don't know, but it smells like all the years of one so-called mistake over another so-called mistake. It gets to the point that it's not a mistake anymore. Listen, in your experience as a cop, you get people that make that one mistake, right? And you say, you know something, this is a warning, I'm going to let you go.
Right.
If you catch him again, what are you going to do?
Listen, I gave you the warning the last time. I need you to press down hard on this. It's 3 copies. Here's your copy of your citation. I'll see you in court.
I'm sorry, did you hear?
I'm going to say, here's a copy of your citation. Press down real hard. It's 3 copies. I'll see you in court.
Right.
I'm not giving
I don't get any traffic citations. I haven't driven a car in 6 years.
So someone explain the difference. So, and I try to break it down to the simplest form for our audience, because a lot of them are not lawyers. And what's the big deal? Because there's something that you benefit if it was only 4 units, and 5 units or more is a commercial unit, which is judged or used separately. I want to explain that part.
The difference between 4 or less units, is that you're a residential property. The difference between 5 or more is that you're a commercial property. And that's a very big important thing. Number one is the underwriting standards are much more stringent on the commercial property. You got to put a higher down payment. The mortgage interest itself is much higher on a commercial property. And also the insurance is higher on a commercial property, which is 3 things. So every one of these things, let me digress for a second. Back in the day when Crazy Eddie was defending himself and I was the main witness, he said, this is all Sammy's doing. He did this, he did that, but he made $100 million. I was making $300K a year. Not trying to plead poverty, but he was the guy that made the money. Him and his family, his dad, his brothers, they made $100 million. Okay. Here, every single mistake she claims she made benefited her financially over a period from when she purchased the property in 2001 to the last mortgage I can see on Acris, which is the database, in 2021. Every single mortgage document was to her financial benefit. Remember, it's not the first time. I'm going to give you a warning this time. I'm going to catch you the next time, whatever. This is a repeated behavior over time.
So, and talking to somebody who's like a layman, And this just, I'm asking because I'm not clear. This kind of is getting to a territory that is sounding reminiscent of what she went after Trump for.
Well, believe it or not, I know about the Trump case, but people ask me all the time. I haven't followed. I don't know much about it. All I know is it was mortgage fraud, et cetera, et cetera. Given my limited retirement resources, it's not an efficient use of my time. I'd rather just spend it all investigating the issues at hand.
Right. Sam, let me ask you a question. You said on your ex, you said multiple phantom mortgages. What do you mean by that?
Let's go back to what I described when she bought the property on Peroni Avenue in Virginia, which is the first of the two properties. The Sterling Street property was the one where she signed the affidavit.
Right.
All right. So the Peroni Avenue property, when I first looked, I saw two mortgages exceeding the value of the property by a ratio of at least 2 to 1. Then I looked and I saw a third mortgage that was never disclosed, and I couldn't find the two mortgages that were disclosed in the financial filings with New York State. These are what I call phantom mortgages. She has also another mortgage that she lists on her financial disclosures in relating to the 296 Brooklyn property, 296 Lafayette Avenue, Brooklyn. That mortgage appears on our financial disclosures to New York State. I can't find it in Acris. So here's the question. Okay, I don't think she made up those mortgages. Just my opinion. Again, I don't want I'll tell you when I deviate from facts to opinion. I don't think that she fabricated those mortgages. What I do think is questions should be asked. Why weren't those mortgages recorded?
Right. That's a
that's the whole purpose of getting a mortgage.
Yeah,
they don't get any protection if it's an unrecorded mortgage. It's just like a regular general debt.
That's interesting. I guess. How do you have mortgages that's not recorded? I'm confused. You
know what it is? She's been on the air. This is baseless. Is this? But she won't litigate. But she's litigating by saying it's baseless and all of that. The first 2 pages of a rebuttal of a lawyer's rebuttal to the DOJ referral was all about Trump. I mean, I can't believe. I think she sees Trump when she wakes up in the morning, when she goes to sleep. I don't know. To me, it's like an obsession. And I'm not defending Trump. Believe me, I'm a Democrat.
Sam, what you're saying, I want to make sure I'm clear. She didn't record the mortgage loan where?
Okay, the Brooklyn property, I'm not sure of the name, and I don't want to mix it up. Name is irrelevant, but I've written in my blog, Brooklyn property, there's one mortgage listed on our financial disclosures that cannot be found on Acris. Acris is the ruling database. Everybody uses Acris. It's a government-funded database.
So I just, the cop in me started like, okay, well, what's the benefit of not recording a mortgage loan? And AI spit out the answer. I have to verify this, but it literally says the main benefit of not recording a mortgage loan is to avoid paying mortgage recording taxes.
That is correct. New York is worse than the mafia when it comes to extracting money out of people. 2% is the mortgage recording tax.
The actual percentage of the loan amount. This can be particularly advantageous for borrowers as it reduces the upfront cost of securing a loan.
That is correct.
However, it also carries significant risk for lenders as unrecorded mortgages can be subject to attack by bankruptcy trustees or other creditors, potentially invalidating the lien.
Now, you brought up a very good point. Let's play investigator to investigator, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Your point is well taken. It is the mortgage company that records the mortgage. Why didn't they? What benefit did they get?
Yeah, they're exposed to more. They're exposed to more risk. Yeah.
And that's a question that needs to be answered.
Why would they do
How
that?
How often do you see unrecorded mortgages?
Why would they do that for? Why would this particular? So now we need to be looking at that lender to say, what benefit did they acquire to absorb that type of risk? Why
exactly. Those are the questions that have to be asked in the investigatory process, which I'm sure that the feds, will do. Everybody thinks that people go to me, on Twitter, they say, well, she hasn't been arrested yet. It's not a 2-hour movie. You guys know that. It's
Yeah.
it's a process. You got to
Exactly.
build upon, build. I don't anticipate. I could be wrong. Maybe tomorrow they'll arrest them, but I don't think so. I don't think we're going to know the results of the investigation for at least 6 to 9 months, as they should take their time.
Right.
It was like when the feds investigate you, it'll take a long time. The feds could be the people cutting your grass for the last 6 months, and you would never know it. You don't know when you're being investigated. You just do not know.
The Crazy Eddie investigation started in January 1987 while I was still at the company, and it didn't even involve securities fraud. It was us. We were charging the Japanese companies 3 times for the same repair and getting reimbursed on it. That's another story. But like we talked about evolving investigations over time, it was learned that there was a securities fraud, and they came after us. Now, the indictments, 1987, January, the indictments didn't come until 1992.
Jeez, 5 years.
Jesus Christ.
Well, part of it's my fault because I lied my ass off before they flipped me and they beat the shit out of me, and I became a better person. But that's another story. I actually have a deep respect for the feds.
Did they physically beat you though?
What?
Did they physically beat you?
Nah, I'm only kidding. But you know the way. Listen, you're a cop. You know how they can play psychological warfare. It's kind of like
absolutely.
They're gonna put you in that room for 12 hours.
At the end of the day, Crazy Eddie's. I got 6 months of house arrest in 1994. It's nothing. 6 months of house arrest, right? But they don't understand. There's a process. It's like having a gun to your head, right? What's that game? Russian roulette, and not knowing when they pull the trigger, it's going to blow your brains out. You don't know.
And it lasts for how? For you, you knew the investigation started in 1987,
right?
Oh,
so for me, the criminal investigation stopped in 1994, but the civil investigation by the SEC, because remember, there's a lower burden of proof in civil cases. So I'm still cooperating with the feds for 4 more years.
So
it basically took over my life for like 10 years. 10 years, 11 years, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that whole process. I mean, I was under indictment for a little while. So I spent 26
We should make up indictment T-shirts. I was under indictment.
I was under indictment. And it's because you don't have the certainty in your life. You don't know what's going to happen.
That's what I'm talking about. Uncertainty. Now, I'm a guy that was married at the time. I have three boys. It's not an easy thing for a parent. Yeah. I'm not trying to play the sob story to you because I made my own bed and I'm responsible for what I did. Okay. But the victim suffered 1,000 times more than me. But the point is, it is a very grueling process.
Yeah.
Right. Sam.
You only made one mistake, Sam. Well, you made a couple, but you made one critical mistake.
I should have entered politics. Go ahead.
No, out of that 100 million that they got, damn it, you didn't work out your percentages right. Okay.
Sam, I want to address. So you say you're saying on X, right? In 1983, James and her father signed a mortgage documents identifying themselves as husband and wife, not father and daughter.
Yes, not to take credit. That was Joe Gilbert who uncovered that.
He said, AJ's like, what?
Wait, what?
Okay, wait, what? Let me explain it to AJ.
Please, yes.
In 1983, she purchased a separate property in Queens, okay, which is a property we haven't spoken about. The deed says father and daughter, but the mortgage says husband and wife. Now, when she paid off the mortgage years later, I think it was right after her father passed away, I'm not sure, but it was years later, right? It still said husband and wife. So it wasn't just it was something that was still there.
No,
so
what
legally,
that?
What is that legally? Is there a crime? I mean, is that a crime? It's just
even if there was a crime, it's past the statute of limitations. It's just a salacious story. It's kind of like somebody dug it up. What am I going to tell you?
But it's just. It might have shown a pattern and practice of fraud.
Yes,
right.
Behavior. Listen,
right.
Do you think I woke up one day when I was doing crime? Do you think I woke up one day and said, "Oh, I'm going to become a criminal"?
Yeah.
Right.
There's
Right.
a process. We all evolve and we all grow. Some of us grow on the wrong path, like me, as opposed to you guys. You ended up on the right path, and some of us grow on the right path. It's just that's just the way it is.
Right. Right. Now, what do you think, as someone with your expertise in is she? Will you do you think that she might have to resign from this?
I think she will. I think they're going to push her to resign behind the scenes.
Right.
She's going to be. Let's talk politics, which I really don't know much about. So again, I'm going to go into speculation territory, not authoritative territory. Okay.
Right.
She is running for election in 2026 in November. It will be the general election, but we all know that most elections are decided at the primary level in New York,
Exactly.
state level, local level.
Exactly.
I think the primaries are in June, which is not that far away. It's 11 months away. She's got to raise money, create an apparatus. It's not just, a day before the primary, I'm running. Okay, whatever. There's a whole process that goes involved in it, right? Now, the issue is here. Does Hochul want her baggage when she's running for governor because they're fellow Democrats?
Right.
Right now, I don't think Tish James is going to resign voluntarily. That's why I posted her own resignation letter for her to save it $4,500, but that's another story. But the point is, I don't think that she will resign voluntarily. I think that the powers that be in the Brooklyn Democratic machine, where they both came out of, or where she came out of, rather, will push her to resign. That's why, because the way that I see it now, she has minimal support. She's not really getting much support. She gets a puff interview with Errol Lewis and another puff interview with what's his name on MSNBC, Chris Hayes, and she gets a couple of shallow press articles and editorial just dismissing it. And most of these guys don't even look at the situation. So she's not getting that huge groundswell of support behind her that I think she would have expected.
I don't think she's I don't think, because by the time the primary, we're talking about gearing up for that election season, the indictment probably is going to drop.
That indictment will be here within the next 6 months, I bet, Sam.
Okay, but you don't want it. You don't want it hanging over the head of the Democratic Party, because remember, people have to prepare to run. It's
but I don't think she's gonna. The key thing is she's not going to be able to raise money.
So
that's going to be the deciding factor.
I leave the politics to you guys because you know more about it than I do.
So here's the thing. So her predecessor and others have resigned from the office while this stuff was just in an allegation state because they didn't want to take away from the work that the office was doing, and they didn't want to be distraction. Her predecessor Snyderman, he resigned just with accusations. There's been no indictments, there's been no criminal charges, but he indicted because he left the office because he didn't want to be distraction to the work they're doing. Several other Democrats, since we're talking about Democrats, have resigned in similar fashion because they didn't want their stuff to be a distraction. So we've gone from that to this to now you almost got to be forced out of office. Like, you know what I'm saying?
That's what I think. Again, you guys know politics more than me, but then again, politics is not much different than crime.
Well, as I want to say,
that's why I don't really want to run for office. That's why. That's
why my poll officer said the same thing. I'm sorry to interrupt you, AJ.
No, as Jonathan said when we were talking about Sean Combs, nothing has been. She hasn't been charged with anything. She hasn't been proven. She's innocent until proven guilty. I want to make sure that we see those.
One of the key differences in this particular situation is we have a piece of paper that, if accepted, just based on the notion of that piece of paper, that creates a real problem, because those representations that are in that piece of paper are either going to be explained as intentional misrepresentations or some kind of complete mistake, absence of the mind.
Yes, and mistakes do happen. Listen, to be fair, mistakes do happen. We all make mistakes, okay? And if it was one mortgage, okay.
Yeah,
If it's two mortgages, okay, I'll give you one more chance. Like you said earlier today, John.
Yeah.
You know,
But
warning.
After
it's
three,
hard to prove. It's hard to prove, like Jonathan said last week. You know, me and you might make a mistake. We're not lawyers.
yeah,
But she's the AG.
she's the AG.
She is so you know, I didn't read that part or I misinterpret that part. Like, this is what you do for a living. Like, it's kind of harder to
but
it's kind of hard to use that. Yeah.
That goes back to Sam's initial point. Like I said, there are a lot of pretenders among us who we give them the, you know, they have the title lawyer, they have the title attorney, and then attorney general, and we give them a lot of credit for that, and they may not really have the type of intelligence that we think that they should have for that type of position.
Yeah, that's what it is. I mean, listen, when I was going through my legal squabbles, I had to go through lawyers too. I had shitty lawyers and then I had great lawyers. You know, that's why I ended up with house arrest. You know, my lawyer said, we're not going to get you limited immunity while you're talking to the FBI. We're not even going to ask for a deal. That's off the table because they got you. They can only hang you once. If they charge you with 50 counts, even though if I catch you with, even though I get you off on 49 counts, the other count is still a 5-year term. He's no, you're just going to tell them everything you know. And he was right. It made his job easier. It made it a lot cheaper than going to a criminal trial. And me,
I try to explain that to so many people, but they become very delusional. I'm like, listen. Yes. You know, they're looking at this indictment and they're just like, okay, I want to go to trial because I get paid more money, sir, to take you to trial. But I'm telling you, the plane's on fire and we should jump out right now. Here's my parachute. I'm jumping. You should jump before I jump.
During the Crazy Eddie thing, there were a lot of negative articles written about me from other members of the family that I was quietly cooperating with the feds against. And you know what my lawyer said? No comment. No comment. No comment. No comment.
Yeah.
And that's whatever. You know, lawyers that try to make these things public are just using their clients as publicity props.
That's exactly right.
Lawyers should know better than anybody. Shut your client up and shut yourself up. What matters is what the DA decides to do or the Department of Justice decides to do. And after that, what matters is what a judge is going to do and trying you get them to dismiss the charges. And then after that, it matters what a jury is going to do. Every other audience really doesn't matter.
You said a mouthful, man, because only somebody who's been through the process and really understands the process can speak to that intelligently like that.
Well, getting caught taught me very, very huge lessons. Believe me if I tell you, if I didn't get caught today, I'd be still doing it. I've said that publicly for 20, 30 years.
You know,
I didn't wake up one day and become remorseful. It was with a gun to my head.
Yeah.
Not actually, but yeah.
But these lawyers that really, like you said, they're using their client as a sophisticated marketing scheme. It's shameful because really you're out there, you're making it worse for your client because
I will tell you my conversations with law enforcement after I joined the light side instead of being on the dark side, they will tell you many lawyers do a disservice to their clients. They make matters worse rather than better.
Yeah.
And it's a shame. It's unfortunate because here people are desperate. I get it. They need somebody. And the first person that tells them, don't worry, we're going to win this case, whatever, they latch on to them. And it's terrible what they do.
Man, I bring him in and I'm hoping not too many people in my local market area hear this, but the reality is the reason I'm 4.9 rated is because I'm painfully raw about it. I give them statistics. 90% of people take pleas, and that is because something that Alan Dershowitz said, 99% of our clients are what we call factually guilty. That does not mean that they are legally guilty. That means that they have actually done things that will cause them to be exposed to criminal guilt. And so out of those 10% that go to trial in a state court across the nation, 3 out of every 4 of them are convicted, meaning that you have a 1 in 4 chance, 25%. I don't like to gamble at those types of tables. The next, if you go in federal court, you have a 3% chance of being acquitted, 97% chance of being convicted. And so
that's what the feds told me way back in the day too.
That number still holds true today.
97% conviction rate or something like that.
97% conviction rate. So what are we talking about here? I'm going to show you the evidence that the state intends to use to present in a courtroom to meet their their burden, and you make a determination as to whether you want to go through with that ordeal, or if you would like me to, we can sit back and wait for the offer to come, which is one of the things that I suggest. I don't suggest going to beg a prosecutor for a deal, because you will get the shittiest deal you've ever imagined when you're in that begging position. But you start talking to the prosecutor early about the case and about your client, humanizing them and trying to build a relationship with them, and then getting something that is reasonable to resolve the matter.
Well, that's what happened with me in the crazy, because I'd been working with the same group of federal agents for so long. They humanized themselves to me, and I humanized myself to them, and they ended up liking me.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly the way it is.
And that's the way it is. But there's another problem also: bad lawyers and also bad clients that don't tell their lawyers the truth.
Yeah.
Or even if they do tell their lawyers the truth, they don't really help their lawyers put together their defense. They think that their lawyers are gonna guesswork themselves into it. So it's a very, very big problem when it comes to the legal process, getting a client to tell you the truth. And the lawyer sometimes has got to smack the client around, saying, no, that doesn't make sense. You're lying to me. I can't represent you unless you tell me the truth. And then I'll decide. That's why we have attorney-client privilege.
Yeah, I'm painfully honest, and I say, listen, here's the deal. If you were to go see a doctor and you were suffering from, say, cancer, you can hide many of your symptoms, but it'd be best for you to tell the doctor, listen, I'm shitting blood right now, so that he can actually start looking at your, at your colon to see if what's causing that. And so I tell people all the time, I'm like, listen, you really want to be honest with me? This is a no judgment zone. It is so that I can begin to build a defense. And I also explain to them, it is not me against the state of Maryland or me against the government. It's me and you against them to be able to get you a good outcome.
Right. And also, a bad client can hurt a lawyer's reputation too.
Right.
Okay. People get it that people have the right to defend themselves and whatever. But what could happen is a bad client can make representations that the lawyer relays to the prosecutors and trying to do. And if they sense the lawyer is not being credible or lying, it hurts the lawyer with his future clients.
It hurts, man. So Sam, you were talking. It's almost therapeutic to hear this, because and we really need to start talking about this, Damon, out in the open, because a lot of folks inside of our community are essentially using their lawyers as parrots and to just say stuff that they think is going to work to their benefit. It hurts themselves, and then later on down the line, it hurts other clients as well.
Remember the Miranda rights. Everything you can and will say will be used against you, something like that. So anything a lawyer puts in writing, everything that Tish James puts on the air, everything that she says will be used against her.
Yeah. So when I saw her, these are entirely baseless allegations. I'll tell you, man, I know she wasn't advised by a lawyer at that point, because that's really going to make the government, they're going to hunker down, and they're going to really want to.
What's the legal? Because another lawyer on YouTube, a very brilliant guy, I don't recall his name, a couple of weeks ago, said, what's the definition of the word baseless? Baseless doesn't mean that the facts don't support the claim. It just means that, it's legal linguistic twist on things.
Yeah, she's basically saying that it's completely fiction. And in order for this to be completely fiction, that would have to be a real stretch. The word baseless, it doesn't really have a really good definition at all, because it's too amorphous.
Well, if you was her attorney, what would you advise her? If you was her attorney, what would you advise her?
I would start off
Shut
with
up.
TFU.
Shut up. And if I were an attorney, I wouldn't be leaking rebuttal replies to the press.
Yeah, and that's what
DOJ wants to leak it. Shame on them, but she shouldn't leak it back.
And that's what troubled me. I said, why is this out here for people to talk about on YouTube? And one girl had the whole letter and the exhibits and everything. I was like, what is she doing?
So there are pretenders among us. There are people who say they're criminal defense lawyers who might be in her ear telling her to do some of that DS. I call DS dumb shit, right? And she's out there doing it, right? She's out there actually doing it. And so what happens is they think that they are going to influence a jury pool at this stage of the game. And what you're doing is you're skipping all the way to that step by saying, I'm going to start putting my narrative out here that sounds like a media person and not really a lawyer.
Now, let me come back to you on that. Like you said, what percentage of people, actually go to trial at the end and and get convicted? 90-something% of the time, right?
Yep.
But what she's doing is she's killing her other options.
Yeah, she's
Right.
taking them off the
And
table.
she's also invigorating the prosecution to go after her. No, one thing I can tell you from my experience of law enforcement, they hate people on the other side with big mouths.
Yeah, that's exactly right. They're going to prove it to you. They're going to shut you up with their legal ability. And so that's why it's best just to shut up. If there's a legal argument that can be made with a straight face and gives you a basis for a dismissal or even shows weakness in the state's case, you might be able to use that as leverage to be able to get a better resolution or deal. Right. But if you don't really have that and you are just out there running your mouth, what you are doing is boxing yourself into a situation where you're going to be forced to go to trial because the offer is going to be so shitty.
Well, here's the thing.
Let me ask you a question. Wouldn't you expect the attorney general to know that? Because because they're usually on that side where they would go after somebody, like you just said.
The assumption is that she's a litigator and a trial attorney. If she's not a trial attorney, she doesn't know that. She's probably.
There's a big difference between a trial attorney, between a litigator, and the person that does real estate closings.
I'm going to trial tomorrow morning at 8:00 on a DUI in Prince George's County, Maryland. I'm at 6:00 tonight, at 8:00 tonight on the radio with you all. That's how comfortable I am going to trial, right? And the prosecutor sent me over an offer on Friday at 10 and said I need to respond back at 2. Otherwise, the offer's off the table. I'm like, okay, well, let's stoke up a jury then and see what they say. So, and the reason is because it's a DUI case, right? And I start off with, listen, ladies and gentlemen, everybody has the right to go and have a drink at the ball game. The state has to prove that you're impaired, and that's it. And so we're going. We're going, and we're going to go to trial. She's going to find out tomorrow because she's probably thinking that the average attorney is going to be like, listen, let me take that offer from my client that you just sent over on a Friday. No. We're going to trial. But there's a lot of pretenders among us, and they're scared. They're more scared to go to trial than their clients are, and that's a lot of them. And that's really sad because they're not really trial attorneys, and they've gobbled up a lot of people's money. And they don't really know.
And it takes to be an effective trial attorney. It takes a lot of time. It's a big mental drain. Yes. You gotta dot every I, cross every T. You never know what a jury's going to do. You never know what questions are going to come out from the other side. Right. You can't predict. So what you're supposed to do is prepare for every possibility so you can respond. And it's not that easy as me saying it in 3 sentences.
I keep checklists around me, and those checklists are so that. I'm 52 now, and so I noticed that my mind is not as quick as it used to be. But, I keep those checklists so that I can okay, did I do this? Did I do this? Did I do this? Did I do this? In fact, when I get in a trial position, I tell my client, listen, here's your pad. Here's your piece of paper. If you have a question, please write it down. I'm going to be so locked in right now. I need to cook over here, and I need you to sit there while I cook. Because otherwise, those odds that we're talking about, those 1 in 4 odds in state court, will really turn into some horrible odds if you interrupt me.
That's correct.
Because we're in an operation room at that point. And the last thing you want when you're in an operation with a doctor is somebody disturbing him while he's cutting on you. So,
So I'll say this, John, if I ever go back to crime, and sometimes it's tempting, I'm going to hire you as my defense attorney if I get caught. But hopefully this time I'll be smart enough not to get caught.
I tell my clients all the time when they're starting to tell me how to do my job, I'm like, listen. The fact that you're in a cage right now and you're telling me this is what you think, I respect your opinion, but just for right now, let me do the thinking. And then I'm going to double back to you and say, hey, now tell me what you think. But let me start understanding. You just tell me everything that happened. Because,
too many people watch TV movies on.
They watch too much TV. They Google shit, and they literally they Google stuff. They watch TV, and watch this. This behind those 4 walls at the detention facility. Did you know that there's a law school?
I wasn't a jailhouse lawyer. I was a house arrest lawyer.
Hey, David, there's a whole legal society back there, man.
Yeah,
and they're telling each other, they're telling each other, this is what you got to do. You got to tell your lawyer this. I was like, listen, man, go back there and tell him I need to hire him as soon as he gets out.
One thing I learned from doing research is the first answer from Google or even AI is generally the wrong answer.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
As we come into the close of the show, I know you were saying you expect an indictment or something to come down, maybe like in 6 months or so.
Yes.
I don't know
who knows what's going to happen. Yeah, I would say 6 months to a year.
Yeah.
But
FBI's thorough.
it depends. I would hope that they don't rush it. Okay, that they take their times, dot every I and cross every T before they do anything. That's what I hope.
Any predictions, if any, from a legal perspective on the Diddy case?
No, I haven't followed, like the Trump case. I haven't followed it.
No, but Jonathan was speaking about it earlier.
So I just looked at the indictment. I think that some of those charges are going to be beat, and I don't think that all of them are.
Yeah, but John, remember this: they can beat 49 out of 50 charges. It doesn't matter. That's what the problem is.
He's getting.
And I get it. And I get it. Along the way, there are people that are saying bogus things, trying to take advantage of the situation so they can get a civil suit. I get all of that. Believe me when I tell you. Let's put it this way. I don't think he's as guilty as he is charged.
Right.
But then again, I don't know if he's not guilty. You know, it's a range, so to speak.
Yeah, I don't think I can't wait to see the trial as it develops. When I looked at the indictment and the charge set, some of the charges didn't. I was like, scratch that, not guilty, judgment of acquittal, whatever. But I do agree with Sam. They've got a lot of bullets in that chamber, and one of them is probably going to hit. And so. That's what the problem is when you're facing multiple charges as a defendant, and law enforcement knows that. By the way, they know that.
Right. And we really don't know what Cassie has told them.
Right.
Because that
was the jump off.
That lawsuit she had was the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, the blueprint almost. Like
right. It was the tip of the iceberg because she was just trying to get away from him.
Right.
Filed a lawsuit. And remember she filed it as an employee. So we don't know what other things that Cassie has saw and might have been forced to do.
And who else she saw receive some of that same type of treatment that she saw that they then went and investigated. We only know of one person right now at this point that's been very vocal, but it's going to be interesting. I would not want to be sitting in federal court with Mr. Diddy on a multi-count indictment. You know, when it first happened.
But you know something? If you're going to take that witness, I can tell you, I was doing it as a government witness, and even when you're telling the truth, it is very, very intimidating.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is not easy.
There's a picture of me. There's the sheriff that I
just get up there and you just whip up. That's something. You know the way lawyers.
Right.
When my story gets told entirely, there's a picture of me on the stand as state's witness against the sheriff down there, Damon, and they took this picture of me breaking down crying because the attorney had asked me a question about him and what was he doing, and this guy I had deemed as my friend, and at that point I'm like, man, I started crying, and that's the picture that he always puts out, that he was lying so much he was crying. It was very intimidating process.
What? Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
So my prediction on Diddy, with my limited knowledge, my from the hip prediction, again, this is where I vary from facts to opinion, that he's going to get convicted on something.
Yeah.
And as far and Jonathan, going back to the other case, what you looked at, any last input or I don't know, prediction or whatever?
Put it this way. Anytime you guys want me on, I'm very easy to talk to. You could have me on. I'll give you this offer. John, when you have an asshole client or whatever that you need somebody to smack them around, not of course physically, call me up.
Man, I will do that.
I'll have a talk today with that.
I'm going to send John your number, Sam.
To make it attorney-client privilege, John, you can give me $1.
Okay.
Legalizes attorney-client privilege.
You're part of the team. You're part of the team.
Right, part of the team. But seriously, I really hate when that happens, and it's not a thing that's spoken about publicly too often. A lot of people end up with unnecessary. First of all, Innocent people can get convicted. Guilty people can lessen the charges or the impact against them. It's unfortunate that that's the way it is. It really is.
I want to write a book about it so that people begin to get educated, because there is a lot of that happening in our community. And then you have the moms who get involved and they say, oh, you know, my baby should, I can't believe you're going to plead him guilty. I do a lot of panel work, and the moms get in the way, you know, and say, listen, I'm like, look, Mom, I can't give you all of the facts. Your son could possibly explain that to you after the trial, because I don't want him talking over the phone. But there's things that, you know, that he needs to consider that you don't know that will expose him.
Then you have the I won't say in a bad way, but the ignorant safety net around them, their families, that also feed them with misinformation because they don't understand. They don't know.
They don't know.
Right.
And, you know, I tried to explain it to my thinking is that I give analogies to them so that they can make intelligent and informed decisions. Like, listen, if your body is suffering from a leg that has gangrene on it, and the doctor comes into the room and he says, listen, your leg has gangrene on it. We need to amputate. If we don't amputate, there's a good risk that will spread throughout your entire body and you will die. You get to make the decision, but I'm informing you so that I believe we need to do this operation, and you make the decision. And it is my medical advice to you to do this operation so that you increase your odds of living. They just don't accept that. And I will say this too, Sam. Black attorneys make up less than 5% nationwide out of all the attorneys. The ABA keeps numbers on this. Black attorneys, I mean, I'm male and female, make up less than 5% of the entire licensed attorneys throughout the nation. And so what we see is there's a 5% chance that they will run into a black attorney. Then there's a less than 5% chance that they will run into a black male attorney. And out of those 2%, less than half of 1% are actual trial attorneys. And so when we explain these things to them, a lot of them take it like, oh man, you just don't want to fight for me, man. I knew I should have went with one of the, here's the I knew I should have.
Believe me, when I first started getting investigated, I was the same way.
Yeah.
You know, life's a journey. I didn't become smart because I was smart. I became smart because I was stupid.
Yeah.
Right.
Learning from my stupidity.
Intelligence starts at the point of ignorance. And so
Right.
you learn, and but I'm trying to really help get that message out, because there's a lot of unearned errors, unforced errors.
Any way I can help you do that, I will help you do that, because that's something
That's
that
great.
very rarely discussed. I'm glad that we brought it up here.
Yeah.
Great, man. That's what it's all about.
I want to thank both of y'all for coming on the show and for this conversation, for breaking down your perspectives on these cases. For everybody tuned in, this is Black Westchester Presents, the People Before Politics radio show. We're on every single simulcasting live on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, X, and somewhere else, YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. Make sure you like and share. Until next week, peace.
God bless you, Sam. Gentlemen, God bless you all.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you,
Sam.
Sam.
Thank you. Good to talk to you, Sam.
Anytime.
Yes.
Anytime.
Later.
This is the People Before Politics show, broadcast every Sunday at 6 p.m. Hosts Damon K. Jones and AJ Woodson bring you the news that impacts our community. Join us for unfiltered, unapologetic coverage of the stories that matter most. Black Westchester Magazine presents The People Before Politics show, the news with the black point of view.